The camera opens with the sound of a roaring engine, but instead of the smell of gasoline or the electric hum of a Tesla, there's nothing, just clean silence. A car glides down a dusty African road, its exhaust pipe dripping nothing but water. The world doesn't know it yet, but this invention, born far from Silicon Valley or Detroit, has the potential to flip the global auto industry upside down. Voiceover: in a world where oil prices skyrocket, where electric cars dominate headlines, and where climate change threatens every future generation, one unexpected corner of the globe has just introduced a car that doesn't run on gasoline, doesn't run on electricity, but instead, runs on water. This is Africa's water-powered car, and the story of how it stunned the entire world. The video cuts to wide shots of a small workshop in Africa. It's not a giant factory. There are no futuristic robotic arms assembling vehicles. Instead, there's a group of engineers and tinkerers, sleeves rolled up, faces shining with determination, surrounding what looks like a humble car. But inside that car lies something revolutionary, a water-to-energy conversion system that defies expectations. Imagine this: instead of pulling into a gas station or plugging your car into a charger for hours, you simply pour clean water, or even dirty water in some prototypes, into a tank. Within seconds, the car's engine comes to life, powered by the hydrogen extracted from water molecules. The process is as clean as science allows. Water in, motion out. The only emission? More water. Now, before we dive into the minds behind this invention, let's step back for a second. The global auto industry has been chasing alternatives to fossil fuels for decades. From Toyota's hybrid Prius to Tesla's electric revolution, to hydrogen fuel cell experiments in Japan and Germany, the race to find the cleanest, cheapest, and most sustainable fuel has been relentless. Yet, here we are, looking at an African innovation that bypasses billion-dollar corporations and reimagines the future. Cut to a man in his mid-40s, an American tourist and car enthusiast named Jack. Jack had flown to Nairobi, Kenya, for business. He never expected to witness history. But when he was invited to test drive a water-powered car, he couldn't resist. His skepticism was obvious. "Jack, when they told me this car runs on water, I laughed. I thought, sure, I've heard about hydrogen fuel cells, but you need all this fancy infrastructure, massive production facilities, and expensive tech. And then I'm standing in front of this car, built in a workshop, not some billion-dollar lab. Honestly, I didn't believe it."
Jacques climbs inside the car. The dashboard looks normal.
The steering wheel feels ordinary. But the key difference is under the hood. He pours a bottle of water into the tank. The engineers nod for him to start the engine. He turns the key, and suddenly, the car hums quietly to life. His eyes widen.
Jacques, no way.
This thing actually runs.
This is crazy.
The camera follows the car as Jack drives it down the road. The smile on his face grows bigger with every turn. "Jack, I've driven Teslas, I've driven gas guzzlers, but this right here? This changes everything. It's not just about transportation, it's about freedom. Imagine a world where you don't need gas stations, don't need charging stations, don't depend on oil companies or governments.
You just pour water and drive."
I'm honestly shocked. The US needs to see this. This is where the story becomes more than just science. It becomes a symbol. A symbol of Africa's growing power in global innovation. For too long, Africa has been viewed only as a consumer of Western technology, not a creator. But with each passing year, the continent is proving doubters wrong. From solar power villages in Rwanda to fintech revolutions in Nigeria, and now, possibly the most disruptive invention in transportation history. The water-powered car has its roots in a simple idea: water is everywhere. While oil requires drilling and refining, while lithium for EV batteries requires destructive mining, water is accessible. The inventors behind this breakthrough asked themselves, why not use it? By applying electrolysis, a process that splits water into hydrogen and oxygen, they built a compact system that extracts hydrogen on demand and feeds it directly to a modified engine. Unlike traditional hydrogen fuel cells that require massive infrastructure, this car generates what it needs instantly. And here's the kicker: it doesn't just run on purified drinking water. Some tests have shown it can run on rainwater, river water, even wastewater after minimal filtration. Imagine the implications for rural Africa, where fuel is scarce but water, even in modest amounts, is accessible. Imagine the implications for the world, where people spend trillions on oil. Cut back to Jack, now stepping out of the car after his first drive. He shakes his head, almost laughing. Jack, I don't even know how to explain this to my friends back in the States. They're not gonna believe me. But I've seen it. I've driven it. And I think this could scare a lot of powerful people. He's right. Innovations like this don't just create excitement, they create disruption. Oil companies, governments, auto giants, they've built entire empires on controlling fuel and energy. A car that runs on water threatens all of that. Which raises the question, will the world embrace this invention, or will it try to bury it? For now, the inventors remain cautiously optimistic. They're not naive to the dangers of challenging trillion-dollar industries. History is full of inventors whose revolutionary ideas mysteriously disappeared. But they believe Africa is ready to stand firm. Voiceover, from the streets of Lagos to the deserts of Namibia, from the crowded markets of Accra to the skyscrapers of Johannesburg, Africa is changing the narrative. It's no longer just a place of resources to be extracted, it's becoming a hub of ideas that can reshape the future. And this car, this water-powered car, is proof. The first prototype is still being refined. It's not perfect yet. The acceleration is modest, the range is limited, and the durability needs testing. But so did the first Model T. So did the first electric car.
Every great leap starts somewhere.
The story of Africa's water-powered car is not just about technology. It's about hope. It's about challenging the idea that solutions must come from the West. It's about rewriting the future of mobility in a way that's not only cleaner, but also fairer.
Jacques Sword Echo has a scène fad. Jacques, if this thing scale, the world is never gonna be the same again.
And honestly, I hope it does. Because this is the future. The workshop is alive with energy. Sparks fly from welding torches, the smell of hot metal lingers in the air, and a group of young African engineers huddle over blueprints, their faces lit with determination. These are not billionaires in polished boardrooms. They are dreamers, innovators, and problem solvers who have one thing in common: a refusal to accept the limits the world has placed on them. Voiceover, behind every great invention, there is a story. The story of Africa's water-powered car begins not in a massive laboratory funded by Wall Street investors, but in a humble garage. It begins with a group of engineers who dared to believe that something as ordinary as water could fuel something as extraordinary as the future. The camera pans across hand-drawn diagrams pinned to walls, equations scribbled in chalk, and half-disassembled car parts spread across the floor. Among the group stands Daniel, a young mechanical engineer from Nigeria, whose passion for renewable energy began when he saw his village plunged into darkness for days during a fuel shortage. Daniel, I remember watching my father walk miles to buy a few liters of gasoline, only for the price to triple the next day. And I thought, why? Why should our lives be chained to oil? Africa has sunlight, wind, water. Why can't we find our own solutions? Daniel's frustration became his obsession. With a small team of like-minded innovators, he set out to design a system that could use the most abundant resource of all, water, as fuel. At first, they were laughed at. Neighbors called them crazy. Even local mechanics told them they were wasting their time. But as Daniel often said, every idea sounds impossible until it works. Months turned into years of trial and error. They experimented with electrolysis kits, rewired engines, and studied the failures of past water fuel inventions. And then one late night, it happened. The modified engine roared to life, powered solely by hydrogen extracted from water. The sound of that engine was more than noise, it was the sound of a revolution.
Cut back to Jacques, the American driver.
He's now seated with Daniel and the team, sipping tea as he tries to process what he just experienced. Jack, so let me get this straight. You're telling me I just drove a car that runs only on water?
No hidden battery, no fuel additive, no trick.
Daniel smiles and nods.
Daniel, no trick.
Just science, persistence, and a belief that Africa can lead, not just follow. What you drove today is a prototype, but it proves the concept works. Jack leans back, stunned. Jack, back home in the States, we've got Elon Musk pushing electric cars, we've got hydrogen fuel cell projects, and yet, you guys figured this out in a garage? Man, if this story gets out, it's going to blow people's minds. And blow minds it did. Word spread quickly, first across local news outlets in Africa, then to international journalists who couldn't resist the headline, "Water-powered car in Africa shocks auto industry." Within weeks, videos of the prototype went viral, sparking debates on social media. Some called it fake. Others called it genius. Everyone had an opinion. But perhaps the most
telling reaction came from the streets of America.
A group of US drivers were invited to Africa to test the car themselves. Among them was Sarah, a school teacher from Texas who had long struggled with rising gas prices. "Sarah, every month, a big chunk of my paycheck goes into my gas tank. When I heard about a water-powered car, I thought, yeah right, it's too good to be true. But here I am, in Africa, driving one. And honestly, I don't want to go back to gasoline." She turns the key, the car hums quietly, and she smiles like a child discovering something magical. "Sarah, it feels so normal, and yet it isn't. Knowing that it's running on water, that's the part that gets me. It's like driving the future." Next is David, a truck driver from Ohio, whose livelihood depends on fuel. "David, I've spent half my life on the road, and half my earnings on gas. If this technology makes it to the US, it's gonna flip the whole industry. Truckers like me, we'd finally be free from fuel costs. But I'm also worried. You think oil companies are gonna just sit back and let this happen? No way. They'll fight this with everything they've got."
David S. Word Echo à Darketrous.
Every revolutionary technology has enemies. And in this case, the enemies are some of the most powerful corporations on the planet. Voiceover, the question is not whether this invention works. The question is whether the world is ready to let it survive. The screen flashes to news headlines: "Big oil in panic over African water car." "Automakers deny feasibility of water fuel." Is Africa threatening the global energy order? Back in the US, auto industry executives dismissed the idea as unrealistic. Executive, there's no way a small workshop in Africa could outpace decades of research from established companies. If they claim to have a water-powered car, they need to prove it under international scrutiny. Until then, it's just hype. But despite the skepticism, videos of American drivers like Jack, Sarah, and David behind the wheel spread across YouTube and TikTok, reaching millions of viewers. People were intrigued.
Could it be real?
Could Africa really hold the key to the future of transportation? Meanwhile, the inventors remain focused. They know that building a prototype is one thing, but scaling production is another challenge entirely. They need funding, infrastructure, and protection. Yet, as Daniel puts it, "Daniel, we don't want to sell out to foreign corporations that will bury this idea. We want Africa to benefit from Africa's innovation. For too long, our resources have been taken, our ideas stolen. This time, we must protect what is ours." The stakes are higher than ever. If successful, the water-powered car could reduce Africa's dependency on imported fuel, cut down greenhouse emissions, and inspire a new generation of inventors. But it could also paint a target on the backs of its creators. Voiceover, history has shown us what happens to those who challenge powerful interests. From Nikola Tesla's suppressed inventions to countless green technologies that never saw the light of day, progress often comes at a price. Will Africa's water car face the same fate, or will it break the cycle? Jack, now back in the US, shares his experience with friends and fellow car enthusiasts. Their reactions range from disbelief to excitement. "Friend, wait, you're telling me you poured water into a car and it just drove?
No way, man.
That sounds like science fiction." Jack, "I thought so too. But I was there. I drove it. And I'm telling you, if the US doesn't pay attention, we're gonna be left behind." Soon, online forums buzz with discussions. Some accuse Jack of being part of a hoax. Others demand the technology be brought to America immediately. The debate grows louder, fueled by viral clips of Sarah laughing as she drives, and David shaking his head in disbelief. What none of them realize is that this is only the beginning. Voiceover, the water-powered car is more than a machine. It is a symbol of possibility, of defiance, and of a continent rewriting its own story. And as the world watches, one thing is clear: the future will never look the same again. The sun sets over Nairobi, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson. The water-powered car sits quietly in the workshop yard, gleaming under the fading light. For its inventors, it is more than metal and wires. it is hope made tangible. But across the ocean, in boardrooms and government offices, this invention is beginning to stir unease. Voiceover, every revolutionary idea attracts attention. Some of it is wonder, some of it is skepticism, but some of it is fear. The water-powered car has caught the eye of the world, and not everyone is smiling. The camera cuts to Washington, D.C., where energy analysts gather on a live broadcast. Analyst, if this African prototype scales up, it could be a direct threat to the oil industry, which still holds massive influence in global markets. We're talking about trillions of dollars at stake. This isn't just about cars, it's about power, politics, and who controls the future of energy. Meanwhile, in Houston, Texas, the oil capital of the United States, executives discuss the headlines over whiskey and cigars. Executive 1, water car? Please. It's a stunt.
À garage trick. Exécutive 2, MEB.
But if it isn't, we're in trouble. You think governments are going to let Africa lead the next energy revolution?
No ta chance.
Executive 1, then we make sure it never leaves Africa. The conversation fades, hinting at the silent war about to unfold. Back in Africa, the inventors are overwhelmed with attention. Journalists camp outside their workshop. Universities invite them to give lectures. Politicians want photo ops. But amid the excitement, Daniel and his team remain cautious. Daniel, we are proud of what we've built, but we know the risks. Already, we're getting strange offers. Companies wanting to buy the rights. Investors offering millions if we sign away control. We didn't build this to make a quick profit. We built it because Africa needs solutions. Jack, still buzzing from his experience, returns to Africa with a group of US drivers. This time, there are cameras, reporters, and live streams. The team wants to show the world, openly, that the water-powered car is no hoax.
The test drive begin. Sarah takes the wheel first.
She pours a bottle of water into the tank, turns the key, and drives.
Camera capture every detail. The live stream chat explode. This is real. Unbelievable.
Why don't we have this in the US? David follows, driving the car along rough terrain to test its durability. He pulls back into the yard, shaking his head in amazement. David, this thing just handled dirt roads better than my truck back home. And it runs on water. Do you understand how insane that is? Clips of the test drive spread across social media like wildfire. Within days, the video racks up tens of millions of views.
Hashtag Trend Worldwide. Hashtag Watercar. Hashtag Africa Innovation. Hashtag Futuricir.
But with fame comes scrutiny. Western media outlets begin running skeptical segments. News anchor, tonight, we examine the claims of an African team who say they've built a water-powered car. Experts remain doubtful, warning that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Scientists debate on live television. Some argue it's scientifically sound. Others dismiss it as hype. Critic, electrolysis requires energy input. If they're splitting water into hydrogen, where's the power coming from? Until they provide data, this is smoke and mirrors. Supporter, but what if they've found a way to reduce the energy cost? Dismissing it outright is arrogant. Innovation can come from anywhere, even Africa. The debate only fuels more curiosity. Meanwhile, Jack becomes an unofficial ambassador for the invention. He organizes talks in the US, speaking passionately about what he witnessed.
Jacques, he drove it with my own.
This isn't science fiction. This isn't fake news. The car exists, and it works. If America ignores this, we'll regret it. He faces ridicule from skeptics, but also gains a growing following of believers who see the potential for freedom from fuel dependency. Sarah, too, shares her story. In a heartfelt interview, she says, "Sarah, as a teacher, I think about the next generation. We're teaching kids to recycle, to care about the planet, but then we keep burning fossil fuels like nothing's wrong. This car gives me hope. It shows that solutions are out there, we just have to be brave enough to embrace them." The emotional testimony resonates with millions of viewers. Parents, students, environmental activists, people start rallying behind the idea. But not everyone is cheering. In quiet corners, threats begin to emerge. Anonymous emails warn the inventors to stop their work. Phone calls with no caller ID whisper veiled warnings. Equipment mysteriously disappears from the workshop one night.
Daniel remaint résolute.
Daniel, we expected resistance. But no matter what happens, the idea is out there now. Even if they stop us, they can't stop the truth. Voiceover, the story of Africa's water-powered car is no longer just about technology. It has become a battle. A battle between innovation and suppression, between hope and fear, between those who dream of a better future and those who profit from the status quo. The tension builds, setting the stage for what comes next, a global showdown over who controls the future of mobility.